one other thing is true that we know for sure, and that is that the CIA did know, because Gordon Liddy, our genius mastermind, whom I knew and thought was nuts at the time,
Yeah.
he was invited to do a presentation of his plan for budgetary reasons to the committee. He's recruited by John Dean. He shows up at the re-election committee, says, I've been promised $500,000, maybe $1 million for campaign intelligence plan. And the acting director says, well, nobody here can approve that kind of money. The only guy that could do that is John Mitchell. He's still Attorney General. He hasn't come over to the campaign. So let's go over to the Attorney General's office. You describe your plan to see if we can get his budgetary approval. Well, the charts, the display charts that Liddy used to present his plan were prepared by the CIA. When the arrests occurred, every single person involved, the 5 caught red-handed and the 2 masterminds, Liddy and Howard Hunt, all of them except Liddy had long-term connections with the Central Intelligence Agency.
Okay. See, that's where things get really sketchy for me, because if anyone doesn't know, the CIA is a foreign intelligence agency. Their job is to gather foreign intelligence for national security. What business does the CIA have being involved in domestic affairs relating to presidential campaigns?
Well, my friend, do you remember the Bob Newhart records when he would do fake interviews with people?
No, I do
He
not.
died recently. I'm older than you are. And one of them he did was talking to Abe Lincoln about the Gettysburg Address, about drafting it. Now try this, Abe. Try this. You can feel some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. And then there's a pause, and he says, well, we do it in different ways, Abe. That's how we do it. And so what you have, you tell me it's against the law for the CIA to operate domestically.
Yes.
Well, except they do. Okay, we do it in different ways. They gave Howard Hunt, a career CIA operations officer, they gave him a wig, a voice altering device, and a gait altering device for his heel, so it looked like he had a limp, so he could sneak in and interview someone who was under political pressure. Gordon and Howard Hunt were going to reconnoiter a possible separate break-in, and the CIA gave them a camera, which the film could only be developed by the CIA, and they took pictures of where they were going to break in. So you can tell me, well, no, the CIA is not supposed to do this, but I can tell you the Church Committee, which was put together after Watergate, it was one of the great Watergate reforms to look at domestic intelligence, that the Church Committee hearings described domestic CIA operations. The FBI would, well, let me take one more step back. We have a Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable search and seizure without a court warrant.
Right.
Well, the issue is unreasonable. And for 40 years before Watergate, it was believed that the president's role as commander-in-chief to protect the nation from all enemies, foreign and domestic, gave him the personal authority to authorize break-ins without court approval. Okay? The FBI called them black bag jobs, usually to plant a bugging device or to photograph documents. And they did an average of 125 a year up until the end of the Johnson administration. The CIA called them surreptitious entries. Same thing, but, they would plant stuff. Maybe they were foreigners operating in the United States. Maybe there were a lot of other excuses. There were also military intelligence groups conducting surveillance. They've got volumes about it from these, they were called the Church Committee, and it all came out after Nixon had resigned and after his people had been convicted and imprisoned, that the government was doing this stuff routinely for the previous 40 years.
That sounds completely, I don't know, illegal to me.
It is. It's not illegal. It's not illegal if the Justice Department doesn't prosecute. Haven't you noticed currently
Yeah.
that people who don't give records to the Congress and are Republicans, like Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, go to jail,
Yeah.
and other people who happen to be Democrats and don't give up records never get prosecuted?
Yeah. So you're saying this was completely corrupt from the beginning.
Well, what are we saying? Our government in the past, for a variety of reasons, has committed crimes? Yes.
Okay.
Do we try to keep it down to a low roar? Yes. Right. Was this hidden from the American public up until Watergate? Yes. All those things are true.
I don't understand how this isn't a bigger story. I mean, there should be national uproar over this. But so,
well, let me stand up for a second because I have one volume on my shelf. I just want to get it down.
Go ahead.
There are 4 books from the Church Committee. This is book 2. Okay.
Okay.
And this is from 1976. And it documents all of the improper domestic issues, domestic spying, and what the government was doing. And it all came out after Watergate. Those records are still sealed. Aside from these hearings, you can't get the evidence they gathered. They won't declassify it. And there's no, we talk about the Kennedy records being declassified. There's no schedule to declassify this stuff because what happened after Watergate, Hoover had died, Nixon had resigned, and Richard Helms, the head of the CIA, had been reassigned to be our ambassador to Iran. Mm-hmm. And the Congress starts holding these hearings thinking they're going to embarrass the Republican administration of Jerry Ford and what's left of the Nixon people. And the FBI starts answering their questions truthfully. And the CIA starts answering their questions truthfully. What foreign leaders did we try to assassinate? Well, there was Castro. There was Patrice Lumumba. There was, the coup we did down in Guatemala.
Quite a few.
This dirty laundry started getting washed and becoming public. And they ended up shutting the thing down. Now, I only say that not because it's proper to spy, but spying was going on before and after Nixon.
Yeah, for sure. So if the CIA is involved, there's a couple different threads here. If Gordon Liddy, who is a madman, like you said, and who you believed was a madman, if he was hired to do this campaign intelligence and he was just trying to show off, why was the CIA involved? And if they are involved, what is their political motivation here? Because to tie a thread that makes me very skeptical, I don't know the timing of this tape, but there's a tape where Nixon is talking to the head of the CIA. I believe it's Helms. And he tells Helms, I know why they killed Jack, meaning JFK. And
I'm familiar with the issue. It just came up. This has not been around more than a year or two. And he says to Helms, I know who shot John. Okay?
Right.
But it's really, after the I know, there's a comma. And it's kind of saying, where's the beef? It's a phrase that you might use to describe an issue. And he wouldn't talk about President Kennedy as John. He would talk about him as Jack. And there have been analysis from competent academics that disprove this completely.
Okay.
He does not tell Helms he knows who shot Jack Kennedy. we think we know who shot Jack Kennedy, but what is so much fun about life is whenever there's a major, major event, there will always be unanswered questions, loose ends, and plenty of room for conspirators. So, did we really put a guy on the moon? Well, the shadow's going the wrong way. Did Jack Kennedy get assassinated by one man? Well, what about the grassy knoll?
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did a lone gunman get on a roof and pop off Trump's ear?
Yep.
There are so many mistakes and unanswered questions. That's going to be a conspiracy theory forever.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we don't know why the CIA was involved in Watergate.
Well, we don't know for sure they were. We know that there are indications they were on the periphery. I mean, it also came out at the hearings that McCord was doing some work in New York and spilled the beans about the planned break-in, and a Democrat operative in New York wrote the committee and said they're coming after you. We don't know the specifics, but let me tell you, they're going to come plant bugs. And the Democrats are trying to say, well, we didn't take it seriously. And the other side is saying, well, you were tipped off. Who are you kidding? Now, there's a series of books. I call them the Doubter books. And it starts with Fred Thompson, who was minority counsel of the Irvin Committee. And it's called At That Point in Time. And he says, we had all these leads and they never turned out. You know, we couldn't get a grip on the CIA. This guy died of a heart attack the night before, Russell, and on and on. And then Len Kolodny publishes a book. No, James Hogan publishes a book called Secret Agenda. And he really lays out the case against the CIA. And it may or may not be true. I don't know. Then Len Kolodny publishes a book called Silent Coup. And he builds on the military spy ring that we know now existed in the White House and on the role that may or may not have been played by John Dean. So there's that whole group. But regardless of that, Jake, that's not what brought Nixon down.
Right.
What brought Nixon down was the prosecutors cheating, meeting secretly with the judges, destroying evidence and hiding it from the defendants. That's what crippled Nixon. Right. In secret, they told the House Judiciary Committee that Nixon had personally approved the payment of blackmail, except they couldn't prove it, so they cheated. And they kept it hidden. This is their report, their secret report called the Roadmap, that they sent to the Hill in 1974, March 1st, 1974. And it stayed secret until 2018. October 11th of 2018, it was unsealed in response to my court petition. Now, that means, as Nixon's defense team, we didn't know they were accusing Nixon of a personal crime. And you say, well, how can that be? You wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
But go ask Judge Meacham recently in New York. In order to get the statute of limitations extended, there had to be a felony. Well, he rules you don't have to say what the felony was. The jury just has to conclude it was one of three possibilities. What kind of nonsense is that? What kind of equal protection of the laws? What kind of due process is that? Well, that's what they did to Nixon. We have a hidden accusation. We didn't even know they'd made the accusation.